as what happens now, it's really still too soon to understand who among these factions of rebels will lead the country and how. But Sullivan actually said yesterday the future of Syria should be up to the Syrian people. But obviously a massive shift like this has widespread impacts in the region that U.S. officials are closely monitoring. And as you heard the NSC say, they're talking to partners in the region. As far as possible U.S. involvement from now on, Sullivan actually agreed with President-elect Trump's statement yesterday, saying that this is not the U.S.'s fight to fight and it should avoid getting involved. Alicia.
NBC's Ali Rafa for us at the White House. Ali, thank you. Joining us now, former CIA Director John Brennan. Director Brennan, thank you so much for being with us. First, your reaction to what we have watched unfold just in the past 24 hours.
Well, Alicia, this is the culmination of nearly 14 years of rebellion in Syria against the Assad regime. And for many years, the various rebel groups were divided among themselves. But Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, known by HTS acronym, led by Abu Muhammad al-Julani, have been very successful and effective over the last several years in terms of bringing these groups together and also moderating some of their public positions and stances. And so it has allowed them to capitalize on the growing animosity within Syria against the Assad regime. So the very fast falling Syrian government forces in the major cities of Aleppo, Hama, and Homs led to this then assault on Damascus, and it was clear that the Syrian regime was not able to repulse it, primarily because their outside backers, mainly Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, were not able to bring to bear the capabilities that were needed to be able to stop this assault. So this is a major turning point. The Assad regime, first Hafez al-Assad, now Bashar al-Assad, have controlled Syria for the past 50 years, but it really does present a number of challenges to folks in the region. The question is whether or not this moderation that Julani has shown over the past several years is going to be sustained. Because let's make no bones about it, this is an Islamist group with many extremist factions. It has its roots in al-Qaeda. It has evolved over the years, but clearly it has been very, very effective just over the past couple of weeks in bringing down the Assad regime. And Hafez al-Assad, or Bashar Assad, I'm sure is out of the country right now, or at least in the Alawi enclave. The Alawi is the religious sect that basically has ruled Syria over a number of years, but the Syrian population is a very diverse one, with Christians and Druze and Shia and Sunni Muslims. But again, Abu Muhammad Julani has been very clever in terms of how he's been able to rally these forces and present a unified front against the Syrian government.
Let's talk about that moderation and that unified front on the part of Julani. He's reassured minorities that he will not interfere with them. The international community has said that he opposes Islamist attacks abroad. How is U.S. intelligence assessing the sincerity of those claims?
Oh, it's a tough question. I do believe that this has been rather politically expedient for Julani to demonstrate that he has been moderating. And in the areas of Syria that they have controlled over the past couple of years, such as in Idlib in the north, they have demonstrated a tolerance for religious diversity, and they have not imposed the strict Islamist standards that we have seen in other places. Now, again, I think there are a number of factions within this coalition of rebel groups that are rather extreme, and the question is whether or not Julani is going to be able to control them. It's one thing to tear down an authoritarian regime and to combine your forces against a common enemy, but now that it looks as though HTS is going to take over the government in Damascus, the big question is whether or not they're going to be able to stay on this moderate course, or whether or not there are going to be some elements that are going to really challenge change that moderation.
So big key regional players here, Turkey, Russia, Iran. Let's talk about Iran first. This from the New York Times, quote, a collapse of Iran's partnership with Syria would by all accounts reshape the balance of power in the Middle East. The axis of resistance that Iran has formed with its militant allies in Lebanon, the Palestinian territories, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen would be weakened. Israel and its Arab allies would be strengthened. How could the fall of the Assad regime impact the rest of the region?
Well, certainly it does undermine the Iranian efforts to have what's called a northern crescent, which would go from Iran through Iraq and then Syria and into Lebanon, of the Shia groups that are aligned with Iran. Which is why the Iranians, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, have been so supportive of the Assad regime. But now the Iranians clearly are on their back foot across the region, whether it be in Lebanon or Yemen, or now in Syria. It seems as though they've lost a very, very strong partner. And again, HTS is a Sunni Islamist group that would be adamantly opposed to any type of increased Iranian Shia influence there. It does upset the balance here. The question is what happens in the coming months in terms of the orientation of the new government in Syria and Damascus, and whether or not it poses a threat to Israel. Again, this is reshaping it, as you pointed out, reshaping the political landscape in the Levant area and the Middle East more generally.
Director Brennan, I would like for you to walk me through the statement that we heard from NSA Sullivan saying that there are three things the Biden administration is focused on. The first, that the fighting in Syria not lead to the resurgence of ISIS. We're going to take steps ourselves directly and working with the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurds, to ensure that does not happen. What does that look like, sir?
Syria is a patchwork of all different groups, and as pointed out, we have aligned ourselves with the Syrian Democratic Front in the north, which is a Kurdish group, as a way to fight against ISIS and also to try to maintain some type of stability in that part of Syria. But there are also a lot of other groups inside of Syria. And I think what Jake Sullivan is saying is that it's still quite uncertain in terms of how this unfolding situation is going to develop. And we will be most interested in making sure that our key allies and partners in the area, namely Israel and Jordan, and then the government in Iraq, are not going to allow a resurgence of ISIS. Now, Abu Muhammad al-Jilani separated himself from ISIS, and there were pitched battles among these various rebel groups, which undermined their ability to topple the Assad regime for many years. But it does seem as though he now has been able to concentrate power in his hands. But the question is whether or not a lot of these areas of Syria, which really are ungoverned and have been ungoverned for many years, will allow the rise once again of ISIS that could in fact challenge this what appears to be a new government that is emerging in Damascus.
Director Brennan, you echoed something that Jake Sullivan said, which is an emphasis on regional partners, Israel, Jordan, Iraq, others who border Syria, who face spillover effects from Syria, saying he needs them to be strong and secure, and saying we are in touch with them every day. You have been inside those conversations in the past. You pull back the curtain for us. Give us a sense of the likely conversations that are happening between the Biden administration, U.S. intelligence, Israel, Jordan, and Iraq.
Well, the intelligence cooperation between the United States and its counterparts inside of Israel and Jordan and Iraq is very close. And I think what is most needed right now is to get as clear a picture as possible about what's going on inside of Syria, what's going on inside of the leadership of the HTS, and to see whether or not we can pick up any early signs of which direction it's going to go. This intelligence is so important to inform policymakers in these countries to be able to coordinate the efforts to try to contain any type of Islamist extremist growth of capabilities and presence in the area there. So this is going to be a situation that is going to continue to evolve. It's going to go through the transition of the U.S. presidential administration turnover from the Biden administration to the Trump administration. This is an issue, I think, that is going to certainly be at the forefront of the U.S. policymakers for quite some time. Again, to see how this is all going to unfold. I think there's still probably some fighting that's going to go on inside of Syria. The question is whether or not it can be kept inside of Syria and not spill over into neighboring states.
Former CIA Director John Brennan, thank you so much for being with us. Next, the crisis in Syria happening while Donald Trump is on the world stage in Paris. We're going to go there live for an update. Our breaking news continues after a short break.
The Real Real, authenticated luxury resale. Thousands of rare, totally unique finds for everyone you love, including yourself.
The Prada girl, the Hermes collector, the Louis Vuitton obsessed.
The watch connoisseur, the hype beast.
I love Fendi.
Marni, Dries,
Rolex.
vintage Tiffany.
Everything sparkly, plus Gucci, Cartier, Dior, and more.
Over 10,000 new arrivals every day.
All up to 90% off retail.
For you, for them, for all. Love The Real Real.
Shop now and get 20% off at therealreal.com. Terms apply.
I was so excited to buy my first home, but I needed a lot of work done on it. I went on to Angie. Jamie was the first person to call.
I explained to her some of the things I could do and showed her some pictures.
He's resurfaced my flooring. He's done plumbing work. He's refinished this beautiful table here.
We just had to sand it for a week.
Well, we didn't. He did.
With top-rated certified pros in over 500 categories, Angie can connect you with the right pro for any home project. Find top-rated certified pros in your area at Angie.com.
We started to use Square. As we moved from one location to two, we quickly realised that we needed better data so that we could customise the curation for each of the markets. Originally, we started with the KDS. By adding the Square Online for the full grocery offering, we hoped to grow sales about 20–25%. And we used the loyalty program, which has definitely generated a lot of repeat business. Since onboarding with Square, we've tripled the business. It's been fantastic.
I'd notice if my son didn't have his coat.
Because you'd never let him lose anything.
You didn't notice that he didn't have his coat? Okay, so now we have to buy him a new coat.
Family proof your family with Tile.
This is The History of Glasses by Warby Parker. A theory of optics emerges in Egypt. Then for a while, not much happens, with glasses at least. A millennium later, the first pair is made near the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It had just started leaning. Glasses exist now. People can see, but they're more expensive than they need to be. So we start Warby Parker. We cut out the middleman to design higher quality eyewear for an actually fair price. Shop it at home, in stores, even virtually. It's the 21st century, not medieval Italy. That's the history of glasses and the future. Come see at warbyparker.com.